Okay, as for final render settings, let's do some adjustments here. So one thing that you could consider was having separate render passes for the scene and for the smoke. In this case, it seems simple enough for us to be able to actually render everything together. So I'm not going to be separating those two. Here on the V-Ray, on our V-Ray node, I'm going to disable the override camera resolution. On the objects, I'm going to make sure that we include everything with RNDR. So let me cancel. Let's just select all and type RNDR star. And that way we're going to be grabbing everything that's supposed to be renderable. The next thing we want to do is make sure we have our lights. That's correct. On our render settings, we'll be rendering with global illumination, so let's keep this on. As for the options, if you disable the displacement, make sure you turn it back on. Finally, on the sampler, let's go to the settings here, and I'm going to increase the maximum subdivisions to 8 or 12, something in between 8 and 12. It depends on how long you can wait for it, or how strong your machine is. So I'm gonna go something in between 1 and 10, 0.01. You can lower the noise threshold to 0.01 or something like 0.008. That should work pretty nicely. We do have motion blur and some specular happening on that motion blur. So it is to be expected that we might get might need some time to get rid of all the noise that we have here. So yeah, I'm going to go all the way to the highest settings that I would recommend for this. So 112, 0.008. The other thing here on the global illumination, you can increase the subdivisions for your light cache, something like 1200 or something like that. What else? We do have some reflections going on here, and it might help if you limit the amount of bounces for the reflections. So here on the options, on the materials, you have here use global max depth, and you can set this to 3. We don't have any refraction, so it's safe to lower this all the way down to 3, but that way we won't have more than 3 bounces of reflection. And we have a lot of motion blur, so it's not going to be really visible if we do get to a limit. But yeah, 3 should be pretty safe, and this should give you some extra time. Going to the shader, let's go to the smoke shader. And going to the shader, something that you can try to, you should definitely try 1 frame before submitting the whole sequence. You should definitely try 1 frame. We're really interested in making sure that this is working properly, that we're not overdoing it with this value. It might be a bit too high, but it depends on the results. Here on the rendering, same thing. If you want to bring this back down, let's say to 300, and the stepping back down as well, I'm going to leave it like this. I think it's going to be pretty safe. And I think that's it. So at this point, I would go to V-Ray here on the images. This is something that we also gonna want to set up. So here, this is where you define where you want to save your rendered images. If you're just doing tests, I suggest that you just disable this. If it's time for rendering the final image, then just set the name here. I'm going to change this to Burnout 01. It's going to be just our first try. And I'm going to grab this again, Control C, Control V, underscore. I tend to prefer underscores to points. And this should be fine. The other thing that I like to do is here on the image format, I like to have all the render elements saved into a single EXR. So I turn this on, write multi-EXR. So we'll have multiple channels on one single file. The other thing that you might want to do is set up some render elements, and let's do that as well. So I'm just going to hit the generate. It's going to generate the render element channels for me. going to dive inside. Some of the things we know we don't need, so we don't have any refraction. We can remove that. We don't have any subsurface scattering, any self-illumination. The background is not really relevant either. So let's just organize these. The atmosphere is going to allow us to just select the smoke by itself. That's going to be interesting. The other thing that's might be interesting is if you want to have a mask for working on the ground and working on the tires based on the object or on the material, you can use Cryptomatte for that. So let's create a Cryptomatte for objects. Crypto OBJ. And let's connect this here on the next available channel. Let's set it by node name. That's fine. And let's create another one. And this one is going to be crypto underscore mat from material. And I'm going to switch this to material name. That way we have access to all the masks that we might need. If you are thinking of having depth of field or something and you want to save out ZDepth, you can also type ZDepth, and that's something that you can also add. I'm not going to use that. And I think we're good to go with this. This is kind of just an example of what might make sense to have. Let's go up. And at this time, I would do a render test. Again, because I don't want to wait all that long, I'm going to just hit render. So the render is finally done. It took 53 minutes on my 4 CPUs, 4 core machines, 8 threads. So not the fastest machine. It looks good. I'm pretty sure this is going to look great once you render everything. The sampling is awesome. We don't have any speckles here and there. So I think this is going to really look great once you have the whole sequence. As you can see, we have all those render elements that we set up, including Cryptomatte for objects, for based on materials as well. And we have all those other stuff. You have separate paths just for the smoke with your atmosphere. And then you have a bunch of other things, specular, lighting. As you can see, GI is probably almost nothing, just a bit on the smoke. And that's it. With a bit of post-production, you can easily then export a video with looking something like this.